I'm sick of all this that's going around, cause the rap is positive, no radio sound. I guess I gotta get blunted and make a brother drop, calling Queen's bitches a host, it gets my props. Do for self, yo, as I lead the way. Sick and tired of having the others saying yay or nay, push the play. Button, all of a sudden, we defeated and bringing the masters out of the rut con. If you dare, dishing to be fair, raising your perpendicular up right on the square. In case you want to know from whence I flow, address me, the Lord. Mighty Leo, my meditation state I use is ancestral. Flow is tight and oh so professional. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I guess I can get that. Good morning, my name is Greg Williams. I'm here to do a workshop with you on critical thinking. Critical thinking. How this came about years ago, and I think I previewed with you guys off camera in the previous class, but I'm going to reiterate for those who weren't here on a little bit of who I am and how it ties into critical thinking. Critical thinking and cultural development. Part-time, I work here at Mercer County Community College as a student success coach. And we talked about what that entails. I asked you guys, do you know about being a student success coach and who they are? And you said yes, and you gave me answers to that. And the responsibilities and how it relates to you guys. Full-time, I work as a state investigator for the Office of the Attorney General in New Jersey. We regulate the casinos. From anybody from maintenance all the way up to owners of the casinos and those who do service with the casinos. And from what you just heard in the rhyme, when I graduated from Howard University, or while I was at Howard University, I was part of the first hip-hop group out of Howard University called Defiant Giants. We were politically activists, as they said with our rhymes. Conscious, we made you think, we put things together that you normally don't hear put together, and that was an example of that. Today, though, we're going to go into critical thinking and how that came about. In the capacity as I work at James Kearney campus, I also volunteer with the youth programs that are housed at the Kearney campus. Upward Bound is one of them specifically. And at one time, I had worked with the Howard alumni, and they were doing college prep. And I was there assisting the representative from Howard. And I had a lot of paraphernalia, I had a lot of information that I brought back to orientation to the youth. And I handed it out, a lot of information to them. And the first question I asked them, and this information had all information about Howard, location, majors, so on, establishment of the college, the university, and so on. First question I asked them, where is Howard University located? No one knew. It was right in front of them. The director went ballistic. He screaming and hollering at him. I asked him to stop. And at that moment, I was sparked and said, you know what? A lot of our youth and a lot of our students, such as yourself, will go to college and will get your degrees. And you will probably go and do great things and fulfill things within your life. But at that moment, and I said the same thing in reference to these students, they don't know how to think. So I asked, with the permission of that director, could I change the focus of what I was going to do, which was to talk to them about being prepared for college and to start talking about being able to think. Because what good is it to have information and you don't know how to properly apply it? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what I did, and I'm going to do it with you, because some of them were sitting there looking at me like, yeah, okay, whatever, dog. And I had to get their attention to let them know how much they didn't know how to think and how much they weren't educated. Because realistically, we all go to school, we've all been to school to get our degrees, but do we really know how to think? Are we really educated? Or are we trained? So what we did, developed by my brother and another director who's passed away, peace be upon him, they developed a quiz. And since I speak and do workshops primarily in front of African American children and Latino children. I expanded so it's relevant to everyone because it's about education. But I'm gonna use this as an example to show how all of us, for the most part, are miseducated. You ready? This is where I need you to speak back to me. So if I was to ask you, which I am asking you, where do black people come from? You would say, anyone, just shout it out. Where do black people come from?
Jamaica.
Africa, Jamaica, America, and I would say Africans come from Africa. Where do black people come from? Everywhere. God. Where do Italians come from?
Italy.
Where do Germans come from?
Germany.
Where do Polish people come from? Where do black people come from? Anywhere. Everywhere. Do you see what I'm doing? And this is what I said to them, and obviously it's the same with you. For them, the African American children and Latino children knew where everyone else came from, but they had no idea where they came from. You know where the countries that I just named in Europe, you knew where those people came from, but you have no idea where black people come from. And the reason I bring this up, every group of people identify with the landmass. This is the purpose of this quiz. Does that make sense? Because with that landmass, there comes a culture. Yes? Within the culture, and I'm gonna get into it because you can see it behind you. Forget my back. You see education here, which I will get into these. And you see that in identifying with the landmass, like I said, there's culture, and there's different mores and forays that come with it. So if I was to, if a person, let me do it this way. No, I'm not gonna put anyone on the spot, because you guys are still asleep, so I'm not going to do that to you. Are you with me so far?
Yes, sir.
Does it all make sense?
Yes, sir.
You sure?
Yes.
Okay. So the first word that you see to the left is education. Will someone tell me what it is to be educated? What is education? I just want to hear how you think. So I'm not trying to catch you out there. This is all about sharing. This is all about being able to get to the point to think, because the points that I want to make for you, I'm going to teach you what it is to be educated. I'm going to display to you what it is to have a culture, the foundation of culture, which are these 9 major people activities, which I will get into. And then I'm going to teach you how to formulate questions so that you will be able to critically ask questions to get definite answers. Are you with me? And then what we're going to do is we're going to apply them, because what good is it to have this information if you don't know how to apply it, correct? So I will give an example, and then we're going to have a discussion briefly, and then we're going to see how these elements work. That make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
I'm not going to do the bump, bump, bump. We're going to do like Mr. Ed the Horse. I'm dating myself. Yeah, she knows. Okay, got you. All right, so education. What is it to be educated? Someone talk to me.
Learn.
To learn.
It's like the knowledge you get from going to school.
Knowledge you get to going to school, yes.
Taking past experiences to help you with future ones.
Past experience to help you with future ones. Anyone else?
Ensure you have problem solve.
Problem solve. Anyone else? Those are good. These are all great answers. Yes.
Being able to teach what you've learned.
Being able to teach
What you've learned.
what you've learned. All right, let me ask you this. Is education the same as teaching? No, you're saying no, because?
You can be for me, education means learning a skill and being able to do that skill. So like teaching's a skill, you can still be educated, just not be a teacher.
Say that one more time for everyone else who didn't hear you. I like the answer.
So for me, education means learning a skill and being able to do that skill. There's a bunch of different skills. Teaching is a skill. You can still be educated, just not be a teacher.
So, if I'm following you, and correct me if I get what you're saying, if I get it wrong. teaching is a skill,
Yeah.
right? So you can be educated, but that doesn't mean you're a good teacher or teaching. Or you can teach, but does that mean that you're educated?
Yeah.
Did I lose you, or did I say it correctly? Is it what you said?
I think you got it right.
Okay. Anyone else? Teaching, education. Yes, we all agree with, what's your name?
John.
We all agree with John? Show of hands. I know you sleep, you're like, I don't even want to think that much. What John said. Okay, got you. What's the first form of education? Anyone? I told you we're going to say things, I'm going to say things that you may or may have ever heard before. First form of education.
Yeah, what do you mean?
That's good. Someone asked a question.
Yeah, so it's
I like that. Hold on to that. You asked me, what do I mean by form? Great question. Anyone else? I'm gonna get to you. What's the first form of education?
What type of education? Would be like reading, like walking?
Reading, walking,
Um,
talking, breathing. First form of education is knowledge of self. Let it marinate. Because that becomes your foundation. Make sense? Let's say this is the ground floor, right? If this foundation, the ground floor, is faulty, and I build stories above it, like 30 stories above it, what will eventually happen to the building?
Collapse.
Because
It's not the first one.
foundation is shaky. Foundation is weak, it's faulty. That makes sense?
Yes, sir.
Since I'm in a public speaking class, yes,
Yes.
if your foundation, which is the outlines that your instructor, different outlines that your instructor has put on the board for you to incorporate, if you don't utilize that foundation, your speeches will be what? How would your speeches be?
Collapse.
Will collapse. Make sense? Okay. First form of education, knowledge of self. If you don't have the first form of education, like we said, I'm just reiterating, then what is built above it will be faulty. When I asked the quiz, when we did the quiz, people didn't know where black people came from because they're saying black and African, right? And I said Africans come from Africa, not black people. We spoke about how other people, when I spoke about Europe, you were able to systematically identify them. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is all making sense. If not, please throw your hands up, ask questions. We're good so far, yes? Okay. So, from the Latin root, education means to bring forth, bring out of. To bring forth. Previous class, when I did my preview, I said in front of you, each one of you are unique. Remember that? You weren't here. Do you remember that? When I said each one of you are unique, embrace who you are, own your thoughts, and when you stand up in front of your classmates or anyone, you're able to present your uniqueness. That's an example of first form of education. Because an educator versus a teacher will bring the uniqueness, their goal is to bring the uniqueness out of you so that then you get to the point where then you're instructing all of us from your perspective. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
First form of education. We're not taught to be educated. We're just taught. Because for an adult, and I'll use example of man, one of my friends used to always say to me, being a male is a biological fact. Manhood is learned behavior. Does that make sense? Being a male, and we can apply it to women, being female, is a biological fact. Being a man or being a woman is learned behavior. A man is supposed to provide, defend, and protect himself, his family, his community. Rites of passage. If he is not doing all three, then he is not a man. Now I'm getting into non-major people activities. What do I mean by that? And how is it relevant here? In this country, you're considered an adult at what age?
18.
What tests have you been taking? What rites of passage have we been given to be considered an adult? Anyone?
High school education.
High school education. Anyone else? Driver's test. Yes?
I was supposed to say driver's license too.
Driver's license. So, and the answers that you've given me, what in those experiences have taught you to provide, defend, and to protect yourself, your family, and your community. Also teaching you the first form of education, of knowledge of self. Any of them? None of them. Any of them? Show of hands, any of them? Have they prepared you for that? No. So I can safely say that it hasn't. So then we can go forward and say in actuality, we have not been educated. Does that make sense? Yes? Let's do the show of hands. Yes? Okay. Talked about the first form of education, and I'm talking about critical thinking. You with me? Cultural development. I talked about the foundation. Yes? It has to be solid. What you have here, and can you read these? Entertainment, economics, education, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. These terms were developed by a Dr. Frances Cress Wellesley. She was a professor at Howard University. She's the author of a book called The ISIS Papers. She has since passed and transitioned. And the purpose of her developing the 9 major people activities, as she uses as a foundation, because it's a culture, and culture, loosely defined, is the way you present yourself to the world, right? So if, as when I spoke on the European names, so if I said if someone was in here who's Italian, is anyone here Italian? Has anyone talked with their elders and what it is to be Italian? No? No? Okay. There was, well, I won't put her on the spot, but there's a student in here that spoke about being from Sierra Leone. And she was here, gave the speech, and bear with me if I don't have this, it was an informative speech. And she was talking about peanut soup. So after you guys had left, I asked her questions like, where'd you get it from? You know, how did you come about, notice, and I will get into formulating the words, see how I'm formulating using the words to get definite answers. How did you come about this? From her mother. So this was something from her homeland, although she had not been, I'm not sure, I didn't ask her the question if she has visited Sierra Leone, but it's from where her people are from. And this was a food that they utilize. Now, if we speak about peanuts, we know the proteins and all of the benefits of eating peanuts. 9 major people activity. You see where I'm going with this foundation. With the 9 major people activities, you may look at it and say, okay, I see these 9 words up there, but how do they relate to me? Well, these things happen regardless if you are paying attention to them or not. These things are happening on a daily basis, and they are effective. But by the fact that we're not educated, we don't have a foundation, regardless of what ethnicity or what country you come from, you're not able to really put things together and to think in a manner that will help you, your family, or your community. Does that make sense? Any questions so far? If I've gone too far to the left or the right, that it's not resonating? Because my purpose is to get you to think. Because all of you are our future leaders, if not leading right now. And we are and what I love about this class, the diversity in this class. Let me do this. I said everybody identifies with the landmass, yes? And I asked about being educated. And we talked about, I briefly spoke about Africa. What is it to be an American? Tell me what an American is. How many Americans do we have in this class? We're not American? Are you afraid to answer me? So, if we are American, what is being an American? What is an American?
Right to vote.
Excuse me?
Right to vote.
Right to vote. Yes, ma'am.
Freedom.
Freedom. Yes, sir.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Free speech.
Free speech. Am I giving you to think that's why you don't want to answer? What is being an American?
Equality.
Equality. What is being an American? What is an American? Yes, sir.
I think part of being American is everyone's gonna
Everyone is different. Based upon, can you expand upon that? What makes you think that?
Your culture, where you come from, your views on many and all aspects.
So, does everyone agree with John? Did you hear John?
Yeah.
Are you sure? He said the differences is what makes us American. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
We don't agree? Yes? Do I need to do a cartwheel? Backflip? No? Okay. I like that. So, if we agree that being an American is based upon our differences, right? Right? And the different cultures living in this country, would you say that that's what makes us great as a country? Unique as a country? No? Yes? Yes, sir.
I would say both. It just depends on how it's like responded to. Like there's people who are gonna say like that they don't necessarily want like everyone to be different, right? And that's like where we see the most messages of hate. But then there's gonna be people who would like to accept that, and that's where most messages of love come from. I think there's two different things.
Drew, yes?
Yeah.
Everyone heard what Drew said? You didn't hear him?
No, I didn't.
Please, would you repeat that, because I don't want to mess you up.
Well, I think the differences can be either like demonized or held in like high respect by two different groups. Whereas one might see the differences as something that they can harbor hatred out of. Others might see the differences where they can like find love and like similarities and things like that within the differences, obviously.
Love within the differences. That make sense? I agree. I love your answers. Thank you all. I love the way that you're responding. So, with what Drew said and what John said, how does that, would you say, because I want to pick my words carefully, are we seeing that today? Is that being displayed today in our country through the media as they're showing aspects of people as we're talking and dealing with each other in America? Are we seeing what John and Drew have said? Yes? No?
Yes.
We are seeing that. We're seeing that the different cultures are being appreciated? No, we're not seeing that? What are we seeing? What are we seeing? Yes, ma'am.
I feel like America is just more open now than it was a few years ago. Like they're more open to equality.
People just
I feel
to
like we're
talk.
growing.
Hold that. Please expand. What do you mean? When you
Like-
say we're more open, what do you mean?
Like to like the LGBTQ community and like different races. Like we find like we are trying to get that equality, but it not like 1920s or in the old ages where people like discriminated them.
Well, I wasn't born in 20. What's it called? Old. Yes. Yes, sir.
I think textbooks and in the media, United States is like this beautiful, perfect place where equality is a thing, but people that live here see everything on a day-to-day basis, notice racism. I mean, some people at least notice all the hate that is being thrown at each other.
Everyone agree? Heard Calvin? Did everyone hear him?
So,
Did everyone agree with what he's saying?
yeah.
All right. I'm gonna go back to your point. Wait, now, repeat it, please.
Well, I just think people just like to talk. Everyone has an opinion. People just want to get it out there, no matter what other people think. Like Trump doesn't care. He just wants everyone to hear him and everyone to try to understand what he has to say.
So do you think he has an agenda?
Yeah, but there's also some people that don't. Some people just don't think that he doesn't. He knows what he's doing. It's all to hear how you feel.
Say that one more time, the last part.
It's all to like how you think or how you perceive what someone's doing or saying.
And that goes back to education.
It all goes back. So being miseducated is how we call it. Given what's your name, sir? Matt. What Matt is saying, given what Drew is saying, Kev's saying, and John, and sis, what's your name?
And Sika, you can call me Hani.
Hani, and what Hani has said, Drew, what Kev just said, goes back to being educated. So if we're miseducated and all this stimulus is coming at us, and our foundation is weak, it would make sense that we don't process it properly, correct? And not processing it properly, then we don't make informed decisions, yes? Does this all make sense? Not being able to critically think helps to add on to that process. Does that make sense? You sure? Yes, no? So I'm not saying that all your years of education from elementary all the way to here, just throw it away as garbage. It's not useful. It's very useful. What I am saying is that we all need to be in a position to where we critically think, to address what it is to be an adult, not be your age. That's the reason you're able to see those who are past 18, in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and you're like, this person acts like a child, because they still are a child. Age does not make you an adult. Your ways and actions. Addressing the rites of passage that is required to make you an adult. Culture, 9 major people activities. It's in all of them. I recall a speech that Kev gave in reference, he used hip hop. And you see how he incorporated it into his informative, was it your informative speech? In his informative speech. Some don't think, well, how is music, entertainment, how can he make that informative and make it substantive? But he did. Make sense? My brother John, when he was showing us how to basketball, like that's a sport. He made it informative, instruction, having, you with me? Kayla with the poem, with the spoken word. Yes? You with me? 9 major people